Lesson 4 in our community series, looking at trophic levels. We're looking at trophic levels, but we're also looking at pyramids of number, pyramids of biomass, and reminding ourselves about food chains and food webs. So there are 4 trophic levels we talk about. Level 1, these are our producers. We talked about those last lesson. So producers which are making their own food using sunlight mostly, and therefore they are photoautotrophs. Photo meaning light, autotroph meaning an organism that makes its own food. So here we have level 1 producers, plants and algae, photoautotrophs. Level 2, the organisms that eat the producers, the herbivores. Level 3, the carnivores that eat the herbivores. Level 4, carnivores that eat other carnivores. They are tertiary consumers, and apex predators are carnivores that don't have any predators themselves, apex being a word for at the very top of. So, decomposers outside of the 4 trophic levels, they're the organisms that break down the dead and decaying organisms, or they cause the decay actually, and they feed on undigested material in feces as well. So, starter for you, 3 questions. 2 examples of primary producers. Why there are less quaternary consumers, that's a term that refers to all predators, than primary consumers, the herbivores. Why are there fewer of these than there are of these? And then looking at this graph, and this is quite a hard question, but then we have done a question just like this in our previous lesson 3. So you should be okay with that. So pause the video, answer the questions, and then look at the answers on the next slide. So 2 examples of producers, plants and algae. Why are there fewer of the quaternary consumers? Well, because energy is lost from the system as you go up each trophic level. Organisms respire, they produce heat. That heat is lost from the food chain. They excrete, they eliminate. Some of the food they take in is not digested, and so that gets passed out. Some of the energy then that they took in is not kept in the food chain, and so less energy is available at each level as you move up. And looking at that graph, this is quite hard as I said, but we did answer this question last lesson as well. The lynx population rises after the hare population rises. When the hare population is reduced, there is less prey for the lynx, and so the number of lynx is reduced. So if there are lots of hares, and then for some reason, let's say disease, the hares die off, then the population of the hares is no longer able to support that population of lynx, and so some of the lynx will die. So here are our objectives for today. Recalling the definition of biomass, we did that last lesson, we'll look at it again today. Describing how energy is transferred along a food chain, again, we did that last lesson, we'll look at it again today. Where biomass comes from, constructing pyramids of biomass and pyramids of number, and we'll look at energy at the same time. And why the pyramids aren't necessarily a perfect answer to looking at how energy moves through ecosystems. So here we have a food chain. Over here we have our producer, our photoautotroph, which is then consumed by our herbivore, level 1, trophic level 1, trophic level 2. The vole is the herbivore that eats the photoautotroph, the producer. And then you have the barn owl that eats the vole. So there you have your secondary consumer, your level 3, and this may be an apex predator because it may have no natural predators. If we look at a food chain in an ocean environment, you have your photoautotrophs, your plants at the bottom here, plants and algae. They are then consumed at level 1. Level 2, the herbivores, zooplankton, sea urchin, parrotfish eating the photoautotrophs, the plants. Other organisms then, like these, consuming the herbivores, and then you have your top predator, your apex predator, your level 4, sharks. Tuna, of course, could be consumed by sharks. Sharks certainly eat seals, as do certainly killer whales eat seals. So they are not top predators, but they are predators. So, food chains. One of the questions you're likely to be asked is, what do the arrows represent? And the arrows represent, in a food chain, they represent the flow of energy. And of course, energy is lost at each step. Not all of the energy in the grass that the vole eats is still in the vole when the barn owl eats the vole, because the vole respires, it loses energy. It excretes, it loses energy. Some of what it takes in, it doesn't digest, and so it loses that as well. There's elimination. So some of the energy that the vole takes in is used for motion, it's used for it's given off in respiration, the thermal energy. It's lost in excretion, it's lost in elimination. So some of the energy is lost and it's not available then for the barn owl. So you can see in terms of numbers, 1,000 grass plants supporting 50 voles, supporting 1 owl. So there you have a numbers pyramid, and it looks nice and neat, but they're not always that neat. If you take a look at this one, an oak tree, one oak tree supports a huge number of caterpillars, which supports a relatively small number of blue tits, which supports a very small number of sparrowhawks. So this is an odd-shaped, an unbalanced pyramid, because you're starting with the tree supporting a lot of caterpillars. Another example of that would be grass, which supports a lot of rabbits, which supports an awful lot of fleas. So that's an odd looking one as well, because the number is not necessarily reducing. There's a lot more fleas than there are rabbits. So what do we mean by biomass? Back to last lesson, but here we are again. It is the dry mass of living material in an animal or plant. So it's not just about, you take the vole, mass of 20, 30 grams. It's not just that, because the vole contains a lot of water. It's the dry mass. That dry mass of the vole would be a good representation of the energy stored in the vole. So here we have pyramids of biomass versus pyramids of number. Here we have pyramids of number, one tree, many, many caterpillars, smaller number of birds and one cat. That's an unbalanced pyramid of number. But if you look at in terms of biomass, there's a huge amount of biomass in the tree, less in the caterpillars, less in the birds, less in the cat. So that's the kind of shape you'd expect. So the pyramid of biomass represents the amount of organic matter, biomass at each trophic level. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we have numbers at each trophic level. 1, huge number, smaller number, 1. So the pyramids are representing numbers, biomass, and if you were to represent energy, it would look like this too. So a pyramid of energy would look the same, because the amount of energy falls as you go up, as you know. So why do we have a problem with these? Well, because they're really very simplified. Some animals occupy more than one trophic level. That complicates matters quite significantly. How do you decide where the biomass lies then if humans are in 2 trophic levels? And it's also very difficult to measure biomass accurately. You can sample it, but measuring it accurately is difficult. Taking the vole as the example, it's kind of hard to work out exactly how much biomass there is in the vole. Not so difficult with plant matter. You can dry the plant matter. Drying voles, it's not really allowed. So that's the problems with pyramids. So let's look at the conclusions then that we can draw from our pyramid. What's happening to the biomass? What's happening to the energy? Well, the biomass, of course, is decreasing. If you go back to that biomass pyramid that we looked at a few moments ago, as you go up through the trophic levels, the amount of biomass at each level is decreasing. Likewise with the energy, because some of the energy at every level is being lost due to respiration, including with the photoautotrophs. They also respire. Every living thing respires. They're used for growth, of course, but they're used for movement. That energy is used for movement, and some of it is lost in excretion, in elimination, so it doesn't stay in the food chain, doesn't stay in the biomass or energy pyramid. Here we have some keywords, some from last lesson, some from this lesson. You should be able to define them all now. Give yourself a couple of minutes, stop the video, pause the video, see how many of those you can define. The answers come up next.